We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. More bad news for Dillian Whyte. Tyson Fury says he don't care. He ain't going to be dictated to when it comes to the WBC and the mandatory by anyone. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing if you want to become part of the gang. Notification gang. Please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash app, and the Patreon family. We working. Sign up for Patreon, link in the description. I got some stuff coming. Check out that group chat we did. It's called Boxingego's The Meeting. It was a bunch of us. We're going to do those if you want to be part of things like that and other exclusive content or early access content. Sign up for Patreon, link in the description, or YouTube channel membership. To become a YouTube channel member, hit the join button right next to the subscribe button below this video. And it does help the channel continue to grow and push out different content and whatnot. Now let's talk about it. Tyson Fury, he did an interview, and there's more bad news for Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte has been trying to allegedly get a title shot. I really don't have sympathy for the situation. I've explained why. I think it's been mismanaged, the situation. I think Eddie Hearn and Team Dillian Whyte, there's several opportunities for final eliminators and things that they've pulled out of. There's little orders and ordinances from people like the WBC. Wilder also said fight Luis Ortiz, different things like that, none of which Dillian Whyte has done. Now is looking bad because they're saying Joshua Fury could, agree. They've agreed to the financial terms of a 2-fight deal. Wilder and Fury still got to fight, things like that. So who knows if or when the WBC would try to intervene and make the winner of Wilder Fury 3 fight Dillian Whyte, when that person can seemingly fight Joshua if he's still winning, and that would be a bigger fight. You got to understand, boxing is a business, and with that business comes money. And with the situation with money is, even though they have rules in place, it is written explicitly with really all the sanctioning bodies that they have veto power. The WBC, they can have a hearing and meeting, and they can get out of the way of their own rules in order to do what they deem is necessary or right or beneficial to the growth of the sport of boxing. That's why fights like Canelo, he could fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. at a catchweight, a man-made division, 164.5, and they'll make a special belt for that occasion because they want to, or they'll make a Floyd versus Conor McGregor, a guy who's 0-0 at the time in boxing, was a UFC fighter, but it's a fight they wanted to be a part of, so they made up a belt, the money belt or whatever it was for Mayweather McGregor. So if Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn doesn't get that by now, and their fans, I don't really know what will make them receive that message. But now Tyson Fury, he just did an interview and he's kind of confirming that he don't care. He said he's the champion and he's not gonna not fight pertinent fights or certain fights, bigger fights, to appease Dillian Whyte, right? He was on a show called Lowdown Show. This is what Tyson Fury said. He says, I'm about fighting the biggest fights out there, and Wilder, Joshua, and Joshua part 3 or 2. So Wilder, then Joshua, then Joshua. Those are the biggest fights out there. Dillian Whyte is looking for a payday against me, and Pulev is looking for a payday. All these challengers are not sellable, especially in America. So I'm looking to do colossal fights. The last few fights I have left, I want them to be the biggest fights possible. He goes on to say, it won't be a belt or organization dictating to anybody because no one has ever dictated to the champion. These low profile fighters don't mean anything to me. I'm after the biggest fights available. I'm a proud WBC champion, but at the end of the day, I'm the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, which trumps everything. Belts are just pieces of leather with pieces of metal on them, and they don't mean anything to me. Dillian Whyte is a one-hit wonder, and he's already been knocked out by Joshua. Anthony Joshua already knocked him out already. The answer to Dillian Whyte is wait in the queue and your time will come, and when it comes, I'm not really interested in you. If he's thinking he's going to call me a few names on social media and I'm going to turn down $100 million payday, then he's got a long wait. End quote. So Tyson Fury is letting it be known. Well, let it be known then. He's letting it be known that he don't care. You know, if need be, he can drop the belts because the belt doesn't mean anything to him. And he's saying, why would I turn down lucrative $100 million fights and, you know, potential Wilder pay-per-view and this massive money fights for these low-profile guys, as he calls them, Kubrat Pulev and Dillian Whyte. He said he's not really worried about that. He has a few fights left in his career, and he's trying to max out and, you know, do what makes sense. Now, I will say this, Tyson Fury, very contradictory. At times he said he'll never fight Dillian Whyte. Then he'll get on the mic and say, I want to give Dillian Whyte a shot because he's been waiting a while. But now he's back to saying that Dillian Whyte, he don't care. He can just starve, you know. So he has been back and forth. He has also said things like money don't matter. I'm donating my whole Wilder paycheck in the first fight to charity because I don't care about money. But now he's talking about I want to get basically money rather than handle my mandatory. So, you know, people are going to feel the type of way about that. But, you know, ultimately, I really have no remorse for Dillian Whyte being treated this way because a lot of it has to do with him. Before the belt was even in Tyson Fury's hands, it was in Wilder's hands, you know, and there were missteps and miscalculations where they didn't follow protocol and they could have already gotten the shot. Dominic Breazeale, I'm not even going to go over this whole thing again because it's just a waste of my time. If you want more information, you can check out my past videos. But I'll just quickly say this. Dominic Breazeale was the #1 mandatory, and Dillian Whyte had a WBC silver, so he was the #1 contender. The #1 mandatory comes before that. Dillian Whyte was offered a fight by Dominic Breazeale. He was called out, we'll say, by Dominic Breazeale to solidify who is the absolute in terms of #1. Even though we knew he was the mandatory, so he would get called on by the WBC first. And Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte instead chose to fight a guy that Dillian Whyte on record had already beaten, even though I thought he lost to Chisora the first fight. But on paper, he beat, it was a close fight. You know, he beat Derek Chisora, and these are the bogus decisions that Eddie Hearn made, right? Let's make a Derek Chisora 2. Then they didn't even put it on DAZN, and it was on Showtime in America. So it's like, how do you let that fight go to Showtime, but you got this deal and you keep telling everybody that Showtime and Steven Espinoza suck and they're going to be out of business, but you let Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora 2 get outbid or whatever and go on Showtime instead of DAZN. Eddie Hearn, you know, these things have been all over the place for him. And then now Tyson Fury beat Wilder, has the belt, has to beat him again to continue to keep the belt, right? And then now you see Dillian Whyte, he's really nowhere closer than people blamed Wilder, but Tyson Fury's pretty much doing the same thing or saying the same thing. So I love it. I love it. I love it. New media, we control the narrative. All the UK hypocrites who they don't like Wilder, they don't like the black fight or whatever the situation is, the racist old media people, they put the, you know, try to put Wilder's feet to the fire and said, hey, give Dillian Whyte a shot. He's been waiting 500 days. This is ridiculous. He's been waiting 610 days. This is ridiculous. He's been waiting 900 days. Wilder's ducking. I don't see the same energy now that Tyson Fury has the belt. You know, Tyson Fury is actually doing worse than Wilder because Wilder had 10 title defenses and he gave Dillian Whyte avenues to get to him. He said, sign the PBC, you're a free agent, and you already had a meeting with my people. That makes it easier. Fight Luis Ortiz. So, realistically speaking, Deontay Wilder gave opportunities for Dillian Whyte to come see him. Tyson Fury's pretty much telling you, at this point, I don't really care about Dillian Whyte and giving him the fight. I don't care. He can wait. He's going to be waiting a long time. Hungry, why wait? Have a Snickers. So Wilder never ruled out Dillian Whyte. He told him to, you know, what you should do. He said, listen to the WBC, fight Luis Ortiz, and then I promise you I'll make it happen. Dillian Whyte didn't do none of that. He didn't fight Dominic Brazil. He didn't fight Luis Ortiz. On the other side of the belts, he could have fought Joshua in the rematch when Andy Ruiz pulled out. And he said Eddie Hearn changed the subject on the phone. It's on Talk Sport in case you want to research that article. So before Andy Ruiz was selected, why wasn't Dillian Whyte the shoo-in? Because he was being used. He should have been an easy understudy. Okay, Gerald Miller supposed to be an American fight, right? And he got pulled because he failed a drug test. Why not put Dillian Whyte? They were at like a similar level in their career. Dillian Whyte and Joshua were supposed to have bad blood, but Eddie Hearn gave Andy Ruiz the opportunity, right? Also, Kubrat Pulev, that was the final eliminator from, I believe, the IBF. That's the person that Joshua is supposed to fight next. So if Dillian Whyte really wanted his shot, it looks like Pulev is going to get a shot before Dillian Whyte gets a rematch. And Dillian Whyte, when he fought AJ, he wasn't a champion. So he's never got to fight for the belts. So a lot of errors in judgment. And then now when Dillian Whyte's in no man's land, he's lashing out on everybody, Wilder, Andy Ruiz, Tyson Fury. But realistically, you should be lashing out at Rematch Room and your team, because they told you, hey, instead of fighting Luis Ortiz, like Wilder said, like the WBC said, hey, fight against a guy you already beat 2 years ago, Derek Chisora. We'll put it in the UK on pay-per-view and try to milk the fans. You know, instead of fighting Luis Ortiz or Dominic Brazil or Kubrat Pulev, they said, hey, guess what? I got a Joseph Parker, former champion, coming off a loss. We'll milk the UK consumer and put that on pay-per-view. So he pulled out of the Pulev fight to fight Parker. Parker was supposed to fight Bryant Jennings, and Dillian Whyte was in to fight against Kubrat Pulev for a final eliminator. He pulled out. So I have no pity. I have no remorse. Tyson Fury's doing his thing. And, you know, it is what it is. He said, why? I'm not worried about Dillian Whyte. He don't bring no value. He already got knocked out. And I could fight Wilder, Joshua. These are bigger, better fights towards undisputed, fights towards legacy. And now Dillian Whyte, I think he's angry because he's realizing he was manipulated and used, and he did all of Eddie Hearn's deeds and tried to protect Eddie Hearn's real investment, his cash cow in Anthony Joshua, and now he's not receiving any rewards for it. That's why you got to make the decisions, like all that blind loyalty and stuff. You got to make decisions that are imperative to you. Dillian Whyte stuck to the script, which was to protect Joshua, which is Eddie Hearn's real cash cow. Eddie Hearn makes it look like he's in Dillian Whyte's corner, but now Dillian Whyte, it looks like he's ass out again, and he's not going to be able to fight for the WBC champion. And in addition to what Tyson Fury is saying, it's almost being corroborated by a guy named Bob Arum, who co-promotes Tyson Fury. Bob Arum says, we're getting over a pandemic. I don't care about the mandatory. So he's talking the same talk as Tyson Fury. And Bob Arum, one thing we will say is he's very smart, he's very cunning, and he has great relationships in boxing from being in boxing so long and, you know, being the guy. When there was no PBC, there was still a Bob Arum. When there was no DAZN, there was still a Bob Arum. So with those type of relationships and a viable excuse like the pandemic, I don't see Dillian Whyte getting called over potential Fury Joshua if Fury beats Wilder again. Why would the WBC, for their sake, for their money, why would they say, you know what, and then on top of that, man, I could keep going. This is too easy. We unpack. On top of that, Dillian Whyte keeps talking trash about the WBC. So if you really think that that's the right approach, Eddie Hearn threatened to sue the WBC over this Dillian Whyte stuff, right? And take it to legal matters. Dillian Whyte keeps talking bad about Mauricio Suleiman. So if you think with all these things factored in, failing to fight eliminators and title eliminators, failing to fight the Luis Ortizes, like Wilder said, failing to sign with PBC. You could have signed with ESPN, failing to fight Kubrat Pulev, talking down on the WBC, talking bad about Mauricio Sulaiman. You know, Bob Arum having a great reason saying, hey, why should we fight a mandatory? We haven't had boxing for 3 to 6 months because of this pandemic. How are you going to order us to fight a mandatory? And then if Fury beats Wilder again and gets locked up with Joshua, then they could easily say, hey, that's for undisputed. It's the biggest fight in British history. So we're not going to get in the way of that and obstruct that and stand in the doorway of that fight happening to appease Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn, which is a much smaller fight. You know, and Bob Arum, he got the pool, he got the network, and he got the relationship where he can probably do that. Look at what they did to Canelo and Lomachenko. Canelo's supposed to fight Charlo. They franchised him. Lomachenko's mandatory was Devin Haney. They franchised him. So if Wilder gets beat by Tyson Fury and he keeps that belt, I would not be surprised or shocked if Bob Arum pulls some strings and gets Tyson Fury franchised. And Dillian Whyte really has no one to blame but himself, because he could have been got a title shot if he would have did certain things, left Eddie Hearn, or, you know, not just been his guard dog and just went with the program. And now you see Eddie Hearn's trying to make it look like Dillian Whyte should really be mad at Eddie Hearn. That's the point blank period. Dillian Whyte, you know, Eddie Hearn's trying to act like he's doing things in the best interest, but look at Eddie Hearn's recent interviews. He keep talking about Fury and Joshua, Fury and Josh, Fury and Josh in Saudi Arabia. Oh, it's a 2-fight deal. He ain't saying nothing about, hey, I want to make the biggest fight in British boxing history, Fury versus Joshua, after I give my boy Dillian Whyte alley-oop because he's been so loyal to me. He trying to move right past it. So anyway, Dillian Whyte's getting left in the dust. It is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. We unpack.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.